Hello, language learners. Hope you enjoyed my previous videos. In this one, I'm going to explain why learning a foreign language in adulthood isn't easy. Hope it will help you to be less critical of yourself and choose the methods and activities which are the most beneficial for your language learning. There are several obstacles on our quick progress in foreign languages. And the first one, you might be surprised, is our native language. Our brain is tuned to our native language. Linguists use a special term for this phenomenon, neural commitment. And to a great extent, we acquire the second language through our mother tongue, especially at the initial stage. We hear and pronounce not the foreign sounds, but our native ones. And that is why people have accents. We learn words comparing them to equivalents in our native language and struggle with grammar because some categories do not exist in our native language or are expressed differently. The second reason is human knowledge and skills vary in their nature. We have so-called declarative knowledge and procedural knowledge. For example, you know when and how to use articles in the English language. That's your declarative knowledge. But when you speak, you still make mistakes. That's your procedural knowledge. Very often it happens that people can speak correctly when they control their speech. But when they are emotional or stressed, they make mistakes, which means that they have explicit knowledge. They know how to use language correctly, but they don't have implicit knowledge. They can't use language correctly without thinking about grammar rules and regardless to their emotional state. Research on the human brain shows that implicit and explicit knowledge are stored in different areas of our brain. Explicit learning is supported by neural systems in the prefrontal cortex, which also is involved in attention, the conscious perception of stimuli, and working memory. In contrast, implicit learning and memory are localized among other places in various areas of the perceptual and motor cortex. So, since implicit memory and knowledge are related to our sensor functions, maybe emotional context and various types of physical activities might enhance the development of implicit skills. There are several stages of processing language knowledge. It should not only be noticed, but also compared to a previous knowledge, integrated with it, and after that, the system you have in your mind is to be reorganized. The fourth reason is related to the fact that deduction prevails in language teaching and learning. It means that new grammar rules and vocabulary are presented via explicit explanation. But many scholars argue that induction is more beneficial for language learners, which presumes that learners have to form a rule from the patterns they observe. It ensures deeper knowledge processing and, as a result, better understanding and better performance. Some researchers argue that learners have to go through the noticing a gap in their knowledge, building their awareness about a certain language issue, make hypotheses about it, test this hypothesis, internalize new linguistic knowledge, and gain control over it. Besides the fact that the learning process is complex, the part of our problem with foreign language acquisition is limitation in our attention and working memory capacity. When we process and produce a speech in a new language, we have to pay attention to so many things. We should remember the meaning of the words, grammar rules, word order, pronunciation, stress, and it's too much, especially at the initial state of language learning. Learners usually concentrate on the meaning and sacrifice other issues such as grammar, syntax, or pronunciation, which seems to be a reasonable solution in this kind of situation. So, don't worry if you make mistakes, many mistakes at the beginning. You simply have no enough mental capacity to synchronize all together. Just do it gradually. Pay attention to your mistakes, memorize correct forms, and when you become more fluent, your correctness will increase. But be aware that the learning process is not linear. The fact that you can use grammar elements of vocabulary correctly today doesn't mean that you will be able to do it in 3 months' time. Be ready to repeat again and again after a certain period. Fortunately, there are many studies on how human memory works. For example, you might see this forgetting curve. It shows you how critical is the repetition on the following day after you learned something. Generally, 4 repetitions with the following intervals are suggested. The first repetition after 1 day, the second repetition after 7 days, the third one after 16 days, the fourth one after 35 days. There are not only obstacles that slow you down in your language learning, there are also accelerators that speed you up. One of these accelerators is social interaction. Unfortunately, many language learners do not pay enough attention to this factor. It is crucial, it is so important for second language learning that it is called a gate to language acquisition. Social interaction increases attention, a sense of relationship. It activates the brain mechanisms linking perception and action. It transfers your knowledge from the classroom setting to the real life setting. It is the most important thing in language learning. And to sum up, several tips that will help you make your learning less stressful and more efficient. Firstly, avoid comparing with your native language. Avoid interpreting in categories of your native language. Secondly, when you struggle with some grammar issues, just relax and try to improve them gradually. It's very important not to limit your learning to drill. Deep processing of grammar is required. To do this, you should build awareness of a certain grammar issue. So Pay attention to it when you listen and read. Since your attention and working memory capacities are limited, try to focus your attention to one grammar category in a time. It's better to do it when you listen or read something with familiar vocabulary or when you listen or read for the second time. Otherwise, you will be distracted by processing for meaning. Hypothesis testing and rule formation is a very important stage. Try to reverse the way you learn grammar. Choose some grammar exercises and try to make rules based on them. Social interaction enhances your learning significantly. Form a learning group and do tasks together with other learners. Research shows that collaborative tasks are much more efficient than the tasks learners do by themselves. It happens because participants of collaborative groups have a possibility to negotiate the meaning, which seems to be a very important stage because learners somehow have to try language, test it, play with it. Choose different types of activities, including listening, seeing, moving, speaking, working alone and with others, engaging emotion and logic, engaging critical thinking, and you will improve. Thank you very much for your attention. If you want to book a lesson of English, Russian, or Polish, please contact me via email.